Over 2,000 years ago, a group of wise men traveled across the pages of ancient religious texts, only to disappear from history. But just who were the Magi from the East? Where did they come from? And why did they enrapture the curiosities of millions of people every holiday season? Or, at least, me. I'm Kale Lawrence, and I have a ridiculous obsession with the Magi. But I think that's pretty evident by now. Most of what I knew when I first started writing the Magi Menagerie stemmed from what I had heard during church services and what I saw in traditional Christmas nativities. But as I dove headfirst into my research, I soon realized that their story was so much more than I could have ever imagined. Despite popular belief, and an unfortunate mistranslation of early biblical texts, the Magi were not kings. In fact, the original Greek text of the Gospel of Matthew specifically says magos, referencing them as Persian astrologers. These astrologers weren't necessarily sorcerers or blessed with magical abilities. Instead, they were part of a society that had served kings for centuries, including Babylonian kings. If you're familiar with the biblical character of Daniel from the Lion's Den story, you'll know that he eventually went on to serve King Nebuchadnezzar as chief of the Magi. Essentially, the Magi were advisors to royalty and excelled in dream interpretation, astrology, alchemy, and mathematics. They were not, and never were, kings. So when you're singing the carol We Three Kings this year, you might want to change that to We Three Magi. Nah, that's not as catchy. One of the biggest myths surrounding the Magi is that they were at the manger when Jesus Christ was born. That is not true. See, it took the Magi time to get to Bethlehem, and when they finally arrived, they stopped at King Herod's palace first to ask where the King of the Jews had been born. Fueled by jealousy, King Herod ordered the Magi to tell him where Jesus was, so that he may also worship him. Well, the Magi could see right through his schemes, and they peaced out. But they did find Mary and Jesus. And ancient scripture says that they were in their home. To really solidify this fact, King Herod ordered the decree to kill any boy less than 2 years old to try to weed out this King of the Jews. He specifically says this because the Magi noted the star had appeared quite some time ago. This is referred to as the Massacre of the Innocents, and while it isn't known exactly how many toddlers were killed, it is estimated it could have been anywhere from 14,000 to 64,000. Needless to say, all those nativity scenes with the Magi are technically lying to you. Oopsie. The Bible never says how many Magi there were. However, 3 was the consensus in early Christianity because there were 3 gifts. In some traditions, it's noted there could have been up to 12 Magi traveling in the caravan. We do not know how many there were, and we don't know their names. Mysterious. While the Magi were revered by kings, they weren't always treated with respect. In fact, in 522 BC, an immigrant group of Magi living in Persia were nearly wiped out. The exact details aren't inherently clear, and there are plenty of conflicting reports, but historians believe the Magi were blamed for a political coup in Persia. The result was horrific. Darius I ran throughout the kingdom, senselessly killing Magi. He even ordered his own people to arm themselves and kill any Magi they could find. Magi were dragged into the streets, beheaded, and cut to pieces. Herodotus even said, quote, "If nightfall had not stopped them, they would have not left one Magus alive." That is truly horrific. But even more horrific, the slaughter of the Magi became an annual holiday. This genocide was celebrated with a massive feast and considered the greatest holy day that all Persians keep. Terrifying. But ironically familiar. While the Magi seemingly disappeared into the folds of time, their legend lives on. In fact, on January 6th, the day of Epiphany is still celebrated in honor of the Magi visiting baby Jesus. That king cake that you typically see associated with Mardi Gras, it also has its roots in the Magi story. And entertainment still draws inspiration from their legend. Yeah. No matter your beliefs, the story of the Magi is one all of us can readily appreciate. May it continue to be a shining light, leading us to new and daring places.